Imagine waking up one morning. You look at a globe, and it's not the one you remember. North and South America are gone. You check the news, you open a history book, and they all say the same thing. The world has always been just Eurasia, Africa, and Australia. Your memories of the Americas? A strange dream, a fiction. Now, imagine someone in a parallel world waking up to the same bizarre reality. But for them, it's the old world that has vanished. This isn't a sci-fi movie plot. This is a very real, very fascinating what if that historians and thinkers have quietly pondered for centuries. What if the old world and the new world never connected? What if they were, for all intents and purposes, two separate planets sharing the same orbit? Let's rewind the clock. For over 15,000 years, after the first humans crossed the Bering Land Bridge, two distinct versions of humanity began to unfold. In one world, the old world, civilizations rose and fell across Asia, Europe, and Africa. The Fertile Crescent gave birth to agriculture. The Egyptians built pyramids. The Greeks laid the foundations of philosophy, and the Romans engineered an empire. From the Silk Road to the great maritime voyages of the Indian Ocean, this world was a sprawling, interconnected web of trade, conflict, and cultural exchange. Iron, steel, gunpowder, the printing press, these innovations spread like wildfire, reshaping societies at a breathtaking pace. By the 5th-10th century, this world was on the cusp of a global age, driven by a thirst for new resources and trade routes. Meanwhile, on the other side of the planet, an entirely different human story was being written. The New World, stretching from the Arctic to the tip of South America, was a land of staggering diversity. Here, civilizations flourished in complete isolation from the rest of the globe. The Maya developed one of the most sophisticated writing systems and calendars in human history. The Inca built an empire connected by thousands of miles of roads through the Andes, without the use of the wheel. And in the heart of modern-day Mexico, the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan was a marvel of engineering, a bustling metropolis larger than any city in Europe at the time. Their agriculture was different, centered on crops like maize, potatoes, and tomatoes. Their technology evolved along a separate path, mastering stonework, astronomy, and complex social structures, all without the large domesticated animals like horses or cattle that were so central to old-world societies. These were two fully formed, complex, and dynamic worlds, each with its own rich tapestry of history, culture, and achievement. They were two separate experiments in what it means to be human. And for thousands of years, neither knew the other existed. The Atlantic and Pacific Oceans weren't just bodies of water. They were cosmic voids separating two universes. So, what happens when these two worlds don't collide in 1492? What if Columbus turns back? What if the Viking settlements in North America never happen, or simply fade into obscurity without a trace? We're now entering the realm of a truly fractured timeline. Let's first look at the New World, or as we should probably call it, the American world. Without the catastrophic arrival of Europeans, the great civilizations of the Americas continue their own trajectories. The Aztec and Inca empires, both relatively young and expansionist in the late 5th-10th century, would likely face internal pressures. Civil wars, rebellions, and environmental challenges were already brewing. Would the Inca Empire have held together? Or would it have fractured into smaller states? The Aztecs faced immense resentment from subjugated peoples. It's plausible a large-scale rebellion could have toppled their rule, long before any Spaniard set foot on the continent. But without the Great Dying, the devastating pandemic caused by old-world diseases like smallpox and measles, which wiped out up to 90% of the indigenous population, the demographic landscape is completely different. The American world remains robustly populated, vibrant, and dynamic. Innovation continues. Perhaps the Inca, already masters of textile technology, develop more complex machinery. Perhaps the sophisticated mathematics of the Maya lead to new scientific breakthroughs. Trade networks, which were already extensive, would expand. The Chinampa farming of the Aztecs, a highly sustainable form of agriculture, could have spread, supporting even larger urban populations. This isn't a static world frozen in time. It's a world evolving on its own terms. Now, let's turn our gaze back to the Old World, or the Afro-Eurasian world. The immediate impact of not discovering the Americas is immense. The age of exploration takes a completely different turn. Without the vast wealth of silver and gold flowing from the Americas, the economies of Spain and Portugal don't experience their massive, albeit temporary, boom. Does the Spanish Empire even become a dominant European power? It's unlikely. The entire economic and political balance of Europe is altered. The focus of exploration will remain fixed on Africa and Asia. European powers would intensify their efforts to control the spice trade routes in the Indian Ocean. Competition between the Portuguese, Dutch, English, and others in Asia will become even more ferocious. Africa, instead of becoming primarily a source for the transatlantic slave trade to supply labor for American plantations, might see different, perhaps even more intense, forms of colonial exploitation focused on its own resources. The horrors of slavery wouldn't vanish, but its scale and direction would be fundamentally different. And what about food? This is a huge one. Imagine Italian cuisine without tomatoes, Irish history without the potato, Thai food without chili peppers, Belgian chocolate without cacao. So much of what we consider to be traditional Old World culture is, in fact, a product of the Columbian Exchange. Without it, diets would be less varied, and populations in some regions might be smaller. The potato, for instance, allowed for massive population growth in Northern Europe. Without it, the Industrial Revolution might have been delayed or taken a different shape, lacking the massive labor force that migrated to the cities. Let's fast forward a few centuries. It's now the 19th or 20th century. In the Afro-Eurasian world, industrialization has happened, but perhaps more slowly and centered in different places. Global politics are a powder keg of colonial rivalries focused on Africa and Asia. World wars might still happen, but the players and the battlefields would be different. Without the United States rising as a global power, who tips the balance in these conflicts? Does a power like Britain, or perhaps Germany, achieve a level of global dominance unseen in our timeline? Or does the world remain a multipolar landscape of competing empires? Meanwhile, in the American world, centuries of independent development have passed. What does it look like? It's impossible to say for sure. Perhaps massive continent-spanning empires have emerged, comparable to China or Russia. Maybe it's a mosaic of competing nation-states, much like Europe. They would have their own industrial revolution, fueled by their own resources, perhaps based on coal, but also maybe on geothermal or hydropower, given the continent's geography. Their technology would be uniquely their own. Imagine great cities with architecture inspired by Tenochtitlan and Cusco, connected by rail lines that follow ancient Inca road systems. They would have their own philosophies, their own political ideologies, their own global conflicts. The most mind-bending question is, when do they finally meet? It's inevitable. Eventually, technology in one world or both would advance to the point where crossing the vast oceans becomes routine. Satellites will be the ultimate game changer. Imagine the moment in the 1960s or 70s when a satellite launched from the Eurasian world beams back the first image of two massive unknown continents. Or when an astronomer in the Incan highlands points a powerful telescope towards the sky and detects the radio signals of another civilization. The discovery wouldn't be a sailboat landing on a beach. It would be a moment of cosmic revelation. It would be first contact, not between humans and aliens, but between two long-lost branches of the human family. The shock will be profound. Two histories, two sets of sciences, two versions of humanity suddenly forced to acknowledge each other. Would the meeting be peaceful, driven by curiosity and a shared sense of humanity? Or would it be a new, terrifying colonial era on a planetary scale, with two industrial age worlds vying for dominance? This thought experiment reveals just how pivotal one historical moment was. The collision of the two worlds in 1492 was perhaps the single most important event of the last millennium, shaping everything from our diets to our economies to our very DNA. By imagining a world where it never happened, we don't just see an alternate history. We see a mirror reflecting the profound, complex, and often brutal legacy of the world we actually live in. It reminds us that our present was never inevitable, and the story of humanity could have been written in two completely different languages. Thanks for joining me on this journey through a divided world. If you enjoy exploring these kinds of historical what-ifs, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more. What do you think would have been the biggest difference? Let me know in the comments below. See you next time.